Elena Reyes clocked in at 10:56 p.m. It was her sixth night in a row working security at the Westbrook Research Facility, an unassuming four-story office building tucked into the quieter edges of Ashford, Oregon. The kind of place you wouldn't look at twice from the road. The kind of place that hid things in plain sight. She gave the sleepy nod to Richard, the overnight janitor with earbuds always in, and made her way toward the central security hub on the second floor. Her badge buzzed against the reader. The door clicked. That was the last confirmed moment she was seen alive. The Westbrook building at night was strange. Most of the tenants, biotech firms, startups, medical consultants, were long gone by sunset. But there was always a hum, a rhythm, a handful of lights that never went out, the flicker of monitors, the whir of old vents. Elena liked the quiet. She needed it. After the messy breakup, after her mom got sick, she found peace in routine, badge check, camera sweep, hourly reports. It was predictable. Except tonight, something felt off. At 12:08 a.m., she texted her sister. Something weird with Cam 4. Might be nothing. Her sister responded. Elena never read it. By 6 a.m., the building stirred to life. By 6:17 a.m., Elena's shift should have ended. By 6:30 a.m., her replacement was calling her phone. No answer. Her car was still in the lot. Her bag still under the desk. But no Elena. By 7 a.m., building management was notified. By 8:20 a.m., the Ashford PD arrived. By 10:15 a.m., the entire building was locked down as investigators reviewed security footage. Elena Reyes, 25 years old, had simply vanished. No exit footage. No sounds. No alarm. She had disappeared between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. in a building with 34 security cameras. Detective Mira Holloway was used to runaways, not ghosts. Elena's bag, neatly zipped, held a half-eaten protein bar, a backup charger, and her security notebook. What stood out was what wasn't there. No phone, no ID, no keys. Her locker was untouched. Uniform folded inside. Any exits without cameras? Holloway asked. The building manager shifted uncomfortably. Only the old freight elevator in the basement. It's not operational. By noon, search dogs were brought in. They sniffed the locker. Her boots. The elevator shaft. They stopped at the basement door. Growled. Saturday. Refused to move further. The Westbrook facility had 4 exits. 3 were locked from the inside after 10 p.m. Only one, the main lobby, was monitored around the clock. Elena was never seen leaving, but there were blind spots. The freight elevator shaft was deeper than it looked, originally part of a Cold War-era fallout shelter system built into the foundation, sealed decades ago. But a rumor floated through staff for years that someone had left the lower levels partially accessible. They used to call it the subfloor, one former employee said. A long tunnel, but now, supposedly. But when Holloway asked for blueprints, they were missing. Greg Lively had worked the night shift longer than anyone at Westbrook. He wasn't known for being friendly, but he was reliable. He also happened to be the last person to see Elena. She passed by my office at 11:10, he said, not making eye contact. Said she was going to do her rounds. That's it. And then, Holloway asked, I didn't see her again. But Greg's logbook had a strange entry. Camera 9, static? Time stamped 2:13 a.m. He never reported the glitch. Never investigated it. Why didn't you follow up? She asked. Greg shifted. Didn't seem important at the time. She didn't believe him. Elena's sister, Daniela, was the kind of woman who didn't cry often. But by day 2, she was shaking in the police station lobby, fists clenched, voice cracking. Elena's the responsible one, she said. Always texts when she gets off. Always calls before bed. She pulled out a note Elena had left 3 days prior. Can't wait for next weekend. Just need to get through these damn night shifts. There was no indication she meant to leave. No drugs. No secret boyfriends. No gambling debts. Just a woman working hard, staying quiet, and vanishing without a sound. And the worst part? Nobody heard her scream. When they subpoenaed Elena's phone records, the final outgoing text stood out. Sent at 2:12 a.m. to her friend Becca. Do you ever get the feeling you're being watched? There was no reply. The phone pinged one more time before going dark. Location, sub-basement level B. That level didn't exist on the company's digital floor plans. But someone long ago had left a paper blueprint on record. Sub-B existed, but it had been sealed off after an electrical fire in 1994. No lighting, no cameras, one stairwell, one freight shaft, and a room labeled B13, Storage, Restricted Access. Holloway looked at the map and whispered, "What the hell is down there?" Detective Holloway had spent nearly 2 decades unraveling the lies people told when they wanted something buried. But the Westbrook blueprints were different. They weren't just redacted. They'd been rewritten. According to city records, Room B13 was never constructed. Yet here it was, drawn in ink, boxed and labeled with a red X scratched through it. This floor plan came from a paper file in records, the city clerk said. I think the last person who requested it was from your department. Who? Holloway asked. The clerk flipped the log. Greg Lively, January 3rd, 2022. 3 months ago. At 3:27 a.m. on the third night of the investigation, another person went missing. Richard Cole, the janitor with the earbuds, the one Elena passed on her way in that night. He hadn't returned home after his shift. His mop cart was found tipped over in the stairwell near Sub B. The chilling part? Camera 7 showed Richard standing still at 2:19 a.m., earbuds out, eyes locked on something just out of framed. He was whispering something, then smiling, then stepping backward toward the unlit corridor. The camera glitched, and Richard was gone. Daniela Reyes returned to the station, gripping something in a plastic bag, Elena's old notebook. The one she used in college. I didn't want to look, but I found this, she said. She'd been writing again. Recently. Inside were pages of erratic entries. Sleeplessness, strange noises during her shifts, the growing paranoia of being watched. But on the last page, scrawled in red ink, it lives under the floor. It listens through the walls. It waits until we're alone. Detective Holloway ran her fingers over the words. They were recent. Very recent. The maintenance blueprints revealed an anomaly. A fire door, sealed from both sides, located 3 stories beneath ground level. It had no handle, no keycard access, and didn't appear on digital maps. Using ground-penetrating radar, the team discovered it led to a hallway, 60 feet long, and a large chamber, roughly the size of a 2-bedroom apartment. When they pried the door open with hydraulic tools, a smell hit them instantly. Rotting metal, damp concrete, something else old. They stepped in slowly. On the far wall was a child's handprint. Faded. The chamber was empty, or so it seemed. The far corner revealed a cot, metal, rusted, with thick leather straps bolted to it. Restraints. A camera, dead and dangling, hung from the ceiling. A speaker was embedded in the wall, long disconnected. And behind it, the words scratched into the concrete. I'm still here. Suddenly, Holloway's radio crackled. "Detective, you need to come to the surface," an officer said. "Now." "What happened?" There was a pause. Security just found something in the crawl space behind the west stairwell. A body, wrapped in security blankets, and wearing Elena Reyes' badge. The body found behind the west stairwell was badly decomposed, wrapped in 3 layers of security blankets and sealed in industrial-grade plastic wrap, the kind used for hazardous material storage. Holloway braced herself as the ME gave the first report. "It's not Elena." She froze. "Then who?" "Female. Mid to late 20s. No ID. But get this. The corpse was wearing a Westbrook janitorial uniform. Tag says, Tiro." She flipped the record book. "Tomorrow. Missing since 2017. Case closed as a runaway. She was never found. Until now. And the worst part? She'd been dead for less than 6 months. Tamara's file had been dismissed as likely voluntary disappearance. She had no family in the state, lived paycheck to paycheck, and didn't have a criminal record. The perfect kind of case to disappear into a filing cabinet. But Elena found her name. Daniela Reyes brought forward a message from her sister's journal. "Tamara R. How did she go missing with no report?" It wasn't a coincidence. Elena was investigating her on her own. Quietly. Just days before she vanished. Which meant Elena might have found out something. Something Tamara wasn't meant to talk about. Something that got her killed. The damaged speaker in room B13 had been hooked up to an old 2-way PA system, disconnected but still housing a microcassette. They played it. A voice came through, soft, terrified, and barely audible. "I hear it in the vents, scratching. Every time the lights flicker. They said it was rats. But it whispers my name. I don't want to be alone anymore. Please, let me out." Holloway's blood ran cold. The voice belonged to Tamara Rowe. And it wasn't a confession. It was a plea. The timestamp read, March 6, 2023. 5 months after she supposedly disappeared. Greg Lively was brought in again for questioning. Holloway didn't hold back this time. "You accessed the blueprints. You knew about B13. You knew about Tamara." He was sweating, visibly shaking. And yet, he didn't break. "I didn't kill anyone," he muttered. "Then why didn't you report the body in the wall?" "I never saw it." "But you knew something was down there, didn't you?" Greg looked up, and for the first time, his eyes showed raw fear. "Not guilt." "Detective," he whispered, "it wasn't me. It's been down there long before I ever worked here." "What has?" Greg stared at the 2-way speaker. Whatever she was afraid of. They tightened security. Posted guards at every exit. Tripled patrols and shut down Sub B. But on the 5th night of the lockdown, Officer Melanie Shaw, a rookie assigned to watch the freight entrance, vanished during her break. Her radio was found buzzing on the floor. Her jacket hung neatly on the back of her chair. And the last camera footage showed her walking not out, not up, but down into the sub-basement. Alone. Expression blank. Like she was following something. The feed cut out again at 2:13 a.m. Another glitch. Another name to add to the list. Detective Holloway tracked down the man who drafted the original blueprints for Westbrook Medical. Julian Kessler, now 84, and living in a care home. When shown the sealed sublevel drawings, he frowned deeply. That room was never supposed to exist. "What do you mean?" "They made me add it later," he said. "No plumbing, no lighting plan, no HVAC. I asked what it was for. The developer told me, someplace quiet where it can't get out." Holloway leaned in. "What can't get out?" Julian looked at her with clouded eyes. They didn't build that room for people to go in. They built it to keep something in. Officer Shaw's belongings were recovered. In her locker, a worn cassette labeled only for break room use. No one had ever noticed it before. They played it. What came through was a woman's voice humming a lullaby. Soft, eerie, slightly off-pitch, like a song meant to comfort, but sung by someone who didn't understand warmth. The me confirmed something disturbing. The hum matched the background audio from Tamara's plea, recorded 5 months earlier. The same lullaby. The sound carried through the vents, through sealed doors, through concrete, and always around 2:13 a.m., the time of every disappearance. Daniela Reyes made another breakthrough. She found a VHS tape labeled Security Audit, 1999, in the archives. Static. A girl, maybe 14, in a white hospital gown, strapped to the same metal cot they'd found in B13. Pale skin, hollowed eyes. She wasn't screaming. She was smiling and humming the same lullaby. A doctor's voice in the background, dictating. Subject 7. Unresponsive to traditional therapy. Exhibits heightened sensitivity to ultrasonic frequencies. Displays unusual vocal mimicry and manipulation tendencies. Recommend isolation. The tape cut out. The girl's name? Lena Vosta. Admitted in 1998. Never discharged. Westbrook Medical once operated as a state-run psychiatric center. In 1999, it was abruptly shut down, restructured, and privatized under new ownership. All patient records were expunged, except Lena's intake report, buried deep in state archives. Diagnosed with elective mutism, psychotic episodes, and extreme auditory hallucinations. She had no known family. Was placed into state care at age 8. Her therapist noted, "She doesn't speak unless it's to repeat what others say. But when she hums, other patients report headaches, confusion, even seizures." One entry, scrawled in the margins. "I believe Lena's voice can manipulate perception. I don't think she's hallucinating. I think we are." Daniela built a map. Tamara Rowe, Elena Reyes, Officer Shaw, and 2 prior patients never publicly reported. They all vanished near B13, within minutes of 2:13 a.m. They all had histories of trauma, silence, or vocal sensitivity. It wasn't random. Lena wasn't dead. She was still here, in some form, maybe not physical, but something else. Something trapped beneath the hospital, feeding off isolation and grief. And she wasn't done. At 2:13 a.m. that night, all security feeds cut again. And this time, someone started humming through the intercom. Daniela Reyes had been holding something back. A private diary Elena kept outside her normal journal, pages ripped out and hidden behind the drawer lining in her apartment. The entries were fragmented. "She whispers when I'm alone." No reflection in the staff room mirror, just static. The vent outside B13 smells like bleach and lavender, same as Tamara's locker. She sings to me. She knows I listen. And finally, scratched in frantic ink. 2:13. She comes at 2:13. "If I scream, no one will hear me." That entry was dated 2 nights before she disappeared. Determined to finish what Elena started, Holloway returned to Sub B with a team. This time, she brought body cams, EM sensors, and 2 forensic techs. They would document every inch of B13. The air was still. Too still. In the center of the room, they found a child-sized hospital bed bolted to the floor, claw marks gouged into the metal frame. The wall opposite it had a mirror, except when they looked into it, none of them reflected back. Only the cot. And a figure curled on it, humming softly. But when they turned around, the bed was empty. The footage from the body cams was corrupted, scrambled into bursts of light and muffled audio. But a few seconds were intact. Holloway is facing the mirror, whispering, "Elena." Then a sound, like hundreds of overlapping voices, gasping, crying, laughing. "Don't look at her. Don't listen." The moment they left the room, one of the techs collapsed. Her ears bled. She kept repeating, "I saw my mother. She was here. But she's been dead for years." She was committed the next day. No memory of the incident. Daniela had refused to return to the facility, but she worked the data angle hard. She analyzed the intercom frequency logs. There was a transmission at 2:13 a.m. on the night Elena disappeared. Playback revealed a scream, warped, distant, raw with fear. Elena's scream. And then silence. Until a second, fainter voice whispered. She listened. She heard me. The transmission ended with the lullaby again, except this time, it wasn't humming. It was a chorus of voices singing in unison, each one belonging to someone who had vanished. The final horror came from a hidden hallway just outside B13, sealed behind drywall, uncovered after a small fire exposed the structure. Etched into the concrete were dozens of names. Some carved, others scrawled in blood, ink, or fingernail. Every missing person tied to Westbrook was there. Tamara, Elena, and Lena Voss. But at the very bottom, a fresh name. Holloway. Detective Natalie Holloway froze. She hadn't carved it, but it was her handwriting. The lights went out. The clock read 2:13 a.m. Daniela started hearing the lullaby in her sleep. At first, she thought it was stress. But when she played her voicemail one morning, the tune was there, faint, buried beneath static. Even her podcast listeners began reporting odd things. Asterisk the episode about Elena wouldn't play at 2:13 a.m. It skipped. Asterisk one fan in Milwaukee swore she saw a pale girl behind Daniela in a video feed, but only in the reflection on her fridge. Westbrook's voices were leaking, and the outside world was starting to listen. Holloway returned. No badge. No ID. She showed up at Daniela's door barefoot, her hands trembling. She had no memory of the last 3 days, but said she remembered the smell of lavender and bleach, and a voice saying, "You should have listened the first time." That same night, Westbrook went dark. All 42 patients were transferred or released by emergency order. Security footage was wiped. But one hallway camera caught a final frame, a silhouette dragging a chair across the floor. And in the mirror beside it, Holloway's face. But she hadn't been there. Daniela and Holloway tracked down Lena Voss's original therapist, a woman named Ruth Castaneda, now in her 70s. Ruth shared a secret she'd never put in the files. Lena didn't just see ghosts. She made them, Ruth whispered. She said she could make people stay. That if someone hurt her, she could keep their soul, trap it, like putting a fly in amber. Ruth believed Judith Clemens saw this gift and exploited it. Together, they created an echo ward, a space where Lena's psychic screams kept souls tethered in an endless loop. That place was B13. Back at Westbrook, Daniela and Holloway snuck into the sealed-off south wing, the one destroyed in the fire where Judith supposedly died. The smoke-damaged rooms were untouched since '99. They found one room still intact, Judith's private office. Inside, dozens of cassette tapes, each labeled with a patient's name and timestamp. They played one. Tamara. Session 6. 2:13 a.m. Tamara's voice, crying, begging to leave. Then Judith, stay still. Listen to her. She's inside now. Let her in. In the background, faint and sweet, the lullaby played on a loop. After removing a loose panel in Judith's office, Holloway found a narrow crawl space. It led to a hidden basement chamber. They entered. The room pulsed. The walls were lined with mirrors, all blackened from the inside. And in the center, a hospital bed, child-sized, shackled. Burn marks surrounded it, but nothing had burned in the room. On the floor, scrawled in soot, she never screamed, "Now we all do." Daniela looked into the last mirror. Her reflection turned to her and smiled, then whispered, "It's your turn now." Something shifted in Grayston. Within days of Daniela's discovery, strange behaviors swept the town. Asterisk, a schoolteacher was found sleepwalking through the forest, humming the lullaby. Asterisk, a teenager filmed herself smiling in the mirror for 6 hours straight, with her eyes completely closed. Asterisk, a father of 3 claimed his wife wasn't her anymore and locked her in the attic. When authorities questioned him, all he said was, "She heard it at 2:13. Now she's listening back." The town psychiatrist? Missing. Daniela tried to upload her footage to the crime ledger. The files glitched. Audio reversed. Visuals stuttered. Her editor called her in a panic. The server is rejecting anything tagged Westbrook or B13. It's like something's rewriting the metadata. Worse, hard copies of her notes were missing. Her audio recorder was wiped. Only one file remained. A distorted clip of a young girl's voice whispering, "She's awake now." Holloway tracked down Lena's foster sister, Carla, now living under a new name. Carla had been in the house the night Lena was taken to Westbrook. Through tears, she finally told the truth. Lena didn't attack anyone. Judith came for her. She promised to fix the nightmares. Said Lena could help others scream quieter. My parents agreed. But Lena never came back. One night, Carla woke up to find her mirror covered in fog and Lena's voice whispering. They told me I could make the pain stop. They didn't say I'd hear it forever. Daniela decided to go back. One last time. Back to Westbrook. Back to B13. She wore a mic. A body cam. Took every precaution. What she captured will never be aired. Here's what we know from the raw audio. Asterisk, at 2:13 a.m., the temperature dropped. Asterisk, a voice said, "Do you want to stay or listen forever?" Asterisk, her breathing slowed. Then silence. Asterisk, the last sound was a child's scream, layered beneath her own. When Holloway found her, she was sitting on the floor, smiling at a wall, and whispering the lullaby backwards. Westbrook was demolished 2 weeks later, but the foundation remained. During excavation, workers discovered a second chamber, deeper, older, not on any blueprint. Inside, dozens of handprints scorched into the walls. In the center, a chair, bolted to the ground. And on the wall, scratched in blood. I didn't scream. Now you won't stop. The town went quiet. But across the country, podcasters, audio techs, and late-night radio stations began reporting odd frequencies. One engineer isolated the signal. It plays at exactly 2:13 a.m. And if you reverse it, slow it down, you hear her singing. Weeks after Daniela's breakdown, the crime ledger received a package. No return address. Inside, a tape recorder, a key, and a note that read, "For Daniela, you got too close. Now finish it." The key belonged to a forgotten municipal archive beneath Greyston's old city hall, long since abandoned. Inside dusty boxes and mildewed cabinets, Daniela and Halloway found blueprints for Westbrook's original construction, dating back to 1919. But one section stood out, labeled only Project asylum. The file was heavily redacted, but the pieces were enough. Project asylum wasn't a facility, it was an experiment. Subjective cognitive residue emission and auditory manipulation. A government-funded program that sought to weaponize trauma-induced psychic projection. In other words, create echoes of pain so strong they could haunt space itself. Lena Voss was their first and only success. Judith Clemens was never her doctor. She was the lead scientist. And the lullaby? It was the trigger phrase. A pirate radio signal hijacked a Greyston FM frequency at exactly 2:13 a.m. For 3 nights, it played the lullaby, layered under white noise. People began reporting. Asterisk sleep paralysis. Asterisk hearing whispers from mirrors. Asterisk scratches on their doors from the inside. The station traced the signal to an abandoned warehouse. Inside, authorities found a single speaker system and Daniela's original podcast episodes, distorted and looped. Someone, or something, was broadcasting her voice as bait. And someone was listening back. Halloway began piecing together a theory. Lena had never left. Her consciousness was fractured across the recordings, embedded in Westbrook's foundation, in every scream that echoed after 2:13 a.m. But Lena wasn't malevolent. She's trying to warn us, Halloway whispered. She's trying to stop what's next. Daniela, still catatonic, began to draw obsessively. Circles, spirals, symbols only found in Project SAM's original documents. And one phrase over and over, turn the mirror, she's behind you. The final tape, the one Daniela received, was decoded. It was Lena's voice, unfiltered. She didn't scream in pain. She screamed to protect the others. They thought silence was strength. They were wrong. My scream stopped them. Now I need you to finish it. That night, Halloway and Daniela returned to the foundation. No cameras, no backup, just a recorder and a mirror. They played the tape at 2:13, and in the reflection, a door appeared. They stepped through. They haven't returned. We often fear the scream, but sometimes it's the silence that hides the real danger. Truth demands a voice, even if it trembles.